So we thought as part of the end of the year, we'd do a special feature, which we're calling the Big Year in Awards. And what we've done is we've actually gone through a whole series of different categories. I'll get Swinny to start going through them. Things that, appeal to us and, a few little jokey ones that are appropriate for the podcast. But, our version of the sort of game awards, but really more just like of gaming in general, more so. So over to you, Swinny.
Yeah, and also just recognizing that many of us, Mike excluded, haven't played the biggest games of the year. So we also wanted to talk about things in a way that allowed us to still celebrate these big games, even if we haven't personally experienced them. Talking about the impact that they made in the year and everything. So we've actually got about 15 categories. Some of them will be quick, some of them may not be as quick, but the idea is it's not just games. There's been a lot that's happened outside of in the industry itself this year. So what we're actually looking at first is the biggest big story of the year. So
big hitter.
So I'm just going to move over to where we've got our list. So this is essentially the biggest news story, not including the console launches. So what was the biggest headline? And we've got 5 nominees. And we've also got some honorable mentions. So I'll say the honorable mention first is NVIDIA has no graphics cards. We put that as an honorable mention because that was a big thing at the time, and still is a big thing. People can't get a hold of any of their new, fancy 3080. I'm sure that you can you get a hold of 3090s, Mike? Or is it just 3080?
Yeah, you want to pay $3,000, sure.
Exactly. So the 5 nominees for biggest news story we had is Apple versus Epic, then Cyberpunk delays and post-launch woes, Microsoft buys ZeniMax Media, E3 and Evo cancelled, or any gaming event in general, and Halo Infinite delayed for a year. So what do you guys think? What is the biggest news story of the year?
Well, can I jump in on one? So just with the E3 and Evo being cancelled, that to me was like a huge disappointment because with Evo, obviously I didn't say this at work, but I actually scheduled leave to watch Evo this year. Because it's a live event. It goes over for a few days and, just the way it worked out. I can't remember if it was the Friday or the Monday, but I was like, I'm going to have that off. And it made sense to have breaks every now and then. But I'm like, Swinny and I are big fans of fighting games. And it just, I don't know. I thought, the idea of watching it live, it'd be really cool. See how the Smash stuff goes, Melee. It wasn't going to be in it, but, Ultimate and Street Fighter and stuff like that. And then, when that got cancelled or when it started to shape up as it was going to get cancelled, I was like, oh. And then I took the day off anyway. Just had a little Viking vigil for it, burnt a tree down.
And then you also had all the sexual harassment claims against the founder of Evo at the same time.
Alleged.
Well, that's what I said, claims.
Alleged claims.
Alleged claims.
And so, were they claims or not?
So basically, and because they would wanted to run a whole bunch of online stuff, and then essentially everything just got shuttered down. They're like, okay, well, Evo's cancelled this.
Everything gets shut down.
That's right. They were going to have Evo online. I kind of forgot about that. And then that part of the story was Smash wasn't involved in the Evo online, which was such a huge slap to the face to Nintendo.
And Skullgirls was, and then the creator of Skullgirls also got their own controversies. It was just a messy situation. But I don't think it's the biggest news story of the year, though.
Yeah, I wanted to cover that because that was important to me, but I don't. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Epic versus Apple, that could. I almost think in 3 years' time we might look back and go, "That's the biggest story." But it depends what happens, right?
The story hasn't been told yet. It's still, almost like the first chapter in a lot of ways, or at least we're 1/3 through the book at most.
Are we judging this based on what impact? Because I think in terms of Cyberpunk delays and stuff and post-launch, I think the fact that there were so many media outlets covering that aren't even traditional gaming outlets or anything like that, the reach was massive for something like that, surprisingly massive. Or are we talking, impact to the industry? Because I think the Apple versus Epic could have repercussions on the industry that are far wider than just that.
Really, the criteria is what
No.
we feel is,
There's three of
is
us.
the biggest
Right.
news story.
Okay, right. So I'm gonna go with Apple versus Epic.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
My vote easily goes for Microsoft buying ZeniMax.
Whoa. We're in trouble, boys.
Because, by the way, like, we're not going to spend ages debating. Like, this is
I was
not.
gonna say there's a lot more to go
The
through.
reason being is because just remember that news story when it hit. They bought Bethesda. Like, to me that was. I guess it was probably the most shocking big news story for me. You know, whether or not it is the biggest news story. Like, the thing with Cyberpunk is I think that is a huge news story, but I don't think that's going to, outside of this year, or at least the early part of next year, have a big domino effect. Whereas the Bethesda buyout of ZeniMax, like, to me, that is huge. The same, and Apple and Epic, to me, those two are the big ones that probably deserve it. Either of those two.
But then I also think something like Cyberpunk will have a huge effect, because I think maybe now people will finally learn to not trust, promotional material, not trust even what looks like the most trustworthy developer / publisher that we know of, that, had a lot of hardcore fans and a lot of people thought they could do no wrong, yet here we go, they did it too. So
okay. Mike, so I'll say how that's so wrong, right? So before all the controversy and people actually got their hands on the console game,
yeah,
they'd sold 8 million total copies of the game. They just announced 2 days ago that they'd sold 13 million now. So 5 million more after all the controversies.
Well, you know what it's like. It's free marketing in the end, right? What's that?
Sorry, go on.
I didn't hear it either.
Marketing's good marketing in some ways, in that sense. So but anyway, what are you going to go for?
Okay, so we all agree that we're knocking out E3 Evo, even though it's important to me. Yeah. I think Halo Infinite, we're kind of sleeping on that a little bit, man. Like, essentially, the Xbox Series X launched with no exclusives.
Exactly, that was the exclusive for it.
It literally has no games that you need.
Yeah,
good for.
Huge deal.
Well, big games. There's a couple of smaller games, but not one that we're talking about.
So is that your choice?
I'm just saying we're sleeping on it. I
agree. It's a massive one. I was thinking about that as well. Exactly down those lines. You launch an entire console, and that was clearly going to be the game for it.
I'm happy to throw my hat in with Apple versus Epic.
I think he's just trying to move it on.
No, I like it. To me, like that was such a huge news story. It's pretty crazy when you think about the fact that Fortnite, one of the biggest games in the entire world, was pulled from one of the biggest platforms in the entire world because of this.
And this could have interesting legal consequences.
Yeah, I think this one's tough because I really do think this is a 5-year thing. Because the Microsoft ZeniMax thing, if they make those games exclusive and really drive a wedge for people, and, what is it called? Starfield?
Yeah.
And Elder Scrolls 6 come out and it's exclusive, even if it's for a year and a half. And they're just everyone's like, well, this is Skyrim 2. It's amazing. It's the best game ever. And there's a lot of people who are going to go, hey, I might actually get on the Xbox bandwagon. That could have a huge impact to the industry. And Apple versus Epic, I just think with Apple versus Epic, I'm not going for it because I think the viability of those lawsuits winning is very low based on all the results so far. So I'm actually, Cyberpunk's massive, but then it's still just a game, and I don't think it's going to have any long-term effects. It's unfortunate because the game's always going to be marred. It's always going to be marred by this.
I don't think it's just for the game itself. I think it's going to, people are marred.
People don't. Anthem, Fallout 76. People never learn, dude. They'll never learn.
I have a feeling.
They'll never learn.
No, of course, a lot of people won't learn, but I think it's made a lot more people learn than before.
Maybe. I'm throwing my hat behind.
Move on. What do you want?
I'm doing Microsoft buys ZeniMax as the biggest story.
Whoa! So unless you're unchanging your change, Swinny, and you're going back to that one.
No, it's staying.
Oh, look at that! It's like a strategy.
Or which one are you picking?
No, I reckon I think my first pick is that Microsoft buying ZeniMax is the biggest news story of the year.
All right, cool.
But you changed your mind, didn't you?
Not including
What I changed again?
including the console launches, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. So that took 10 minutes, and we've got another 14 to go.
We're all good. So the biggest small story of the year. So this is essentially like the biggest niche story, or the story that went under the radar that we kind of think was important, but was still a relatively small story.
Yeah.
So the honorable mentions, we had Amazon announcing Luna, their streaming service, because nobody cared about that.
I've heard it once. Someone talking about it once this year.
That was us.
Because it's out. It's actually out.
And also the fact that they announced Earthlock 2, which is a game I love, so I just want to put that as an honorable mention. But for our 5 nominees for biggest small story of the year, we have the launch, or I guess the rise of the Melee rollback mod Slippy and what that meant to the community, Smash community. We have Michelle Ancel, creator of Rayman, Beyond Good and Evil, leaving the games industry. We had the Melbourne Monolith in Flight Simulator. We have the Aiden Chronicle Kickstarter and how well that went. And we have the Analog Pocket pre-orders and the kerfuffle around that. So
the one that made me laugh the most was the Melbourne Monolith. You know what this is, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Flight Simulator, there was a incorrect value in the free open database, which has maps. I can't remember what the name of it is. It's like a competitor to Google Maps. So someone had entered the wrong value on the floors, created this huge monolith in Melbourne, which is our home city.
Now, they actually discovered there was a couple of other monoliths around the world as well.
There were, yeah.
Oh, really? And there was like, what do you call it?
Black hole thing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Which they patched, unfortunately.
Well, that's the thing. I can't know if they patched the monolith already. Surely that would have been patched.
Yeah, it got patched straight away.
Well, then I don't think it deserves because it no longer exists.
Well, no, but it was still a big piece of story of the year. It doesn't have to have an impact ongoingly. Big story. Honestly, I'm not aware of any of the other stories well enough, so I'm just going to pick this one. So you guys think?
I think that the Analog Pocket stuff for me was really cool, but I'm so blinded by it with all the analog stuff I have. But I actually think this one's super easy, man. Slippy, the Melee rollback mod created by Fizzy, which is like, by the way, the worst series of names ever. But you know, the guy Fizzy who made Slippy, and then he has another site called Gizzy or Dizzy or something like that. That is by far the number one niche story this year. Like the fact that guy spent 6 months making the netcode for a game that came out in 2001 from memory, better than Nintendo can for Smash Brothers Ultimate, and to be fair, better than Capcom does for Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, that's big.
Is insane. Like to me, that it's just no doubt that it's number one story. How about you, Swinny?
Yeah, I'll go with that. Now that I remember what you guys spoke about it, yeah.
So
that's Slippy then.
I think that Slippy is my favorite here as well.
Okay, well, I thought you were going to be a contrarian and go something else.
No comment. Okay.
Such a contrarian move.
Yeah, exactly. So our third category is biggest I am disappoint of the year. So this is our biggest disappointment in a game or a developer or a community. Basically, something that we're like, man, we expected you guys to do much better on this. I am disappointed. So we have 3 honorable mentions. First is Super Mario 3D All Stars. Wait, no, maybe 2. Wait, did someone just remove an honorable mention, or am I misreading? Okay,
no,
only 2. Right. And
hey, by the way, I like that game. I got it for Christmas, and I love it.
Well, I think it's worthy of being an honorable mention. And the Monster World 4 remake trailer. After I talked up that being so excited,
yeah, you did.
It was like the biggest like gut punch of. I'm so excited about this. No one's talking about it much. It was around Tokyo Game Show time, and then suddenly the trailer comes out. And it's like, oh my god, this looks horrible. What's going on? I still hope they turn it around. Anyway, so our 5 nominees for biggest I'm disappointed is CDPR or CD Projekt Red's quality control, Nintendo's legal takedowns, and everything to do with how they've handled their community woes. Ubisoft's sexual misconduct. That was a big story in the middle of the year. That was almost the biggest news story, but I think the other one mentioned it out. Halo misses the Xbox launch, and the NVIDIA cards launch debacle.
I feel like I know which one Mike's going to go for.
No, see, I don't know. So they're all interesting in their own way. Other than Ubisoft itself didn't have sexual misconduct, so that's phrased a bit incorrectly.
Well, it was the easiest way to phrase that than
Yeah, I know.
like
Come on.
people that did or something.
I know.
I like how Mike adds nothing. He's like these YouTube commenters, adding nothing and just like these little comments.
Actually, it wasn't Ubisoft themselves.
Actually.
Okay, so I'm obviously tossing between the whole Nvidia issue, only because I was looking forward to that one, but also the quality.
And you were
control.
disappointed.
That was probably, to be honest, I'm more disappointed at what happened with Cyberpunk.
So, do we want to broaden quality control also out to like the CEO's handling of everything? Like basically,
just the whole
their mismanagement of that. Or
I reckon, yeah. So everything from and look, I do acknowledge and understand the difficulty of launching something like that, but I still think it could have been managed better, and there should have been more delays, etc. And they should have stuck to their story of only launching a product when it's actually ready. But I understand it's a lot more complex than that when you start signing contracts and deals with the likes of Microsoft and Sony and whatnot. So I'm gonna go with that one, I reckon. Even though I'm super disappointed that I couldn't get my hands on a graphics card. Still can't.
So I'll just say again, with the Nintendo legal takedown, obviously there is disappointment there, but there's no surprise there.
That happens every year.
Well, it just all happened to kind of, I think, specifically with the Smash community stuff, that really reached a head, and it's still at that point, like, we don't know where it's all going to go from here. But because it's unsurprising, Nintendo have generally not been very supportive of the like competitive communities, and have also been super protective of their IP, as you know. I don't think that deserves to be considered, but I think it was still worthy of a nomination.
Yeah, look, I think I do want to. I was going to suggest changing the name, and then Mike had his little comments, so I thought I better not. But yeah, I think the CDPR one, I wouldn't say quality control, because I think the devs and the QA team, they need the time to be able to build these things correctly. And they obviously are capable of making incredible things. It's the management, really. So like, if that's CDPR's management, like, I think that's the clear winner for me.
I've renamed it CDPR's mismanagement.
Yeah. And I think it is such a disappointment. I mean, genuinely, you can't argue. It's definitely the most wanted, most looked after, most sought game of the generation. And it's just a complete debacle of a launch. It's like for consoles.
I think when you add in the crunch stuff, this is an easy winner.
Well, yeah, you had 4 delays, crunch, the backing off, in the investor calls, they're saying, oh no, crunch is not a big deal. And then literally 1 hour later, they're emailing the whole staff going, oh, we're so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Or it's just not a great year for CDPR's board and senior management. That's for sure.
All right. So I think we've decided on a winner for that one.
Not the kind of thing you want to win.
No.
Okay,
so now we go to so we've got some dual categories, just like we had biggest big story and biggest small story. I've screwed myself up with this naming, but it's still with it. Now we've got biggest face of the year and biggest heel of the year. So using wrestling terminology, biggest good guy, biggest villain, basically. So starting with biggest face of the year. So we've described that as person or company that did great stuff or gave away lots of free stuff. So we don't have any honorable mentions for this one. So there's 5. So first nomination is Epic Game Store for all the free games that they gave away, and essentially creating half of Integot's gaming library. We have Xbox Game Pass because we're complete shills. And honestly, they've added crazy stuff in this year. This year it's gone pretty crazy.
I mean, can I just say we're not complete shills. You're the complete shill. Your video graphic is an Xbox Hall of Fame that you
That
got.
I didn't create, but that's fine. That's all good.
And also,
Hey,
they're not giving it for free because you're paying for the Game Pass.
Oh yeah,
True.
but that's the thing. So it's kind of that's why it did great stuff. They added, but also
Great value.
we're just shills. So the third
You're shill.
You're the
third nomination. Hey, even you've admitted you're a shill for Game Pass, Integot. Third nomination is Fizzy. So that's the creator of Melee mod Slippy that we mentioned before. Then we've got The Last of Us Part 2's accessibility options, and anyone that hasn't seen what they've done there, go check out Game Maker's Toolkit. They did their roundup. Each year they do a video covering Mark Brown. He covers the accessibility and where they've gotten to this year and how the big titles have fared. And that game is crazy, the work they've done, and now I understand why it won the Game Award for it. And the fifth nominee is actually something a lot of people might not know about, but it's it's called, well, I've named it here as Hyperdot. Hashtag Hyperdot A11Y or Ally, I guess. And what that is Hyperdot is a game where it is able to be used with a lot of accessibility options, specifically for people with a lot of physical disabilities, and that aren't able to use standard control methods. And they actually did a huge campaign that was linked to a research project, and that's where the hashtag comes from. So they actually got the communities to contribute, and it actually created this big research project around how we can adapt games for people with disabilities. So it's really, really good, I guess, project that they ran. So I think for me, there's an easy one for this. I got to give this to Fizzy, creator of Melee mod Slippy, because this guy, from all accounts, quit his full-time job. This isn't a. Correct me if I'm wrong, Integot. This is not a paid mod of any type in any way.
No, he did have Patreon.
He had a Patreon, but you didn't need to pay to get access to this mod, correct?
Yeah, so you did for the beta version, but yeah. So I didn't pay for it, and I've played it a lot or a bit.
So considering the impact this has had for someone that has given their time and essentially for, I'd say probably very little financial gain. I'm sure he's gotten support, but he didn't do this for that reason.
No.
It has revived an entire gaming community in a lot of ways. It is like the work that they've done is just amazing. And I know that Mike's probably not able to speak to it, and I haven't used the mod myself, but I just can't go past the fact that an individual has done this. To me, they're the good guy.
I haven't played it, but given everything you guys have said about this, I'm sold on it. The fact that a guy quits his job, if that's the case, and then does this and contributes to the community and does a really good job of it is huge. Because when I look at something like the Epic Game Store, it's a marketing ploy in the end. It's nice, it's really cool, and I love it, but in the back of my mind, there's always that, but these guys do Fortnite, and it's just a marketing stunt to get people on their platform.
Capitalism.
Exactly. So, congratulations for that, really. Well, Xbox Game Pass to me, I pay for it, so, they should earn their right to have my money, so to speak. So I'm glad that they're actually doing something. And the other categories I'm not familiar enough with. I think what happened with the accessibility options, it's really cool, but I think the impact is huge, but it's for a relatively smaller number of people in that sense.
Well, so is the Melee.
It's a hell of a bigger impact. Well, I guess that's the thing. That's the same as the Melee. It might be a small community, but I guess the impact is pretty big. So I think, I'll go with your choice as well.
Well, can you give me an opportunity to convince you to change your mind?
Nah. Okay, fine. What?
So you know that I'm an Epic Game Store shill, so it probably surprise you that for me, the clear winner is The Last of Us Part 2's accessibility options. Now, okay, so let me lay out the argument. So these guys, and I'm not I haven't played Last of Us 1 or 2, right? So I'm not a shill for Naughty Dog or anything like that. But I think it's pretty amazing to me that they're making this game. It's a huge game. It's taken so long. And they actually had some fans that reached out to them. And it got all the way up to Neil Druckmann. And it was basically like, look, my son isn't able to play this game because there's some parts of the game that you have to press like A or X cross repeatedly, and it sort of limits him playing it, and he loves it and he wants to see the story, and it just seems like, I think the letter basically was like, it just seems unnecessary. It's like, why do you have to do that? Why do you have to gate it from them? And it actually really struck a chord with the whole team. And so much so that they actually just said, you know what, the whole game, we've got to think about the whole game and how are we stopping people from playing the game? And how do we open the game up to people? Because they just want people to enjoy the story and, that journey that the characters go on. And why do we have to artificially put things in front of it? And I can say, I'm very much a capitalist on the podcast, but, this is definitely not a money-making exercise. Like, this is costing them money, and they're investing money essentially
I think
to do this.
In the sense that it opens it up to a broader audience.
Yeah,
and it's also
marginally.
a really feel good story, and which I think is also great for marketing. Let's face it. So,
and sure,
because of that, I think they did it for what are probably very genuine reasons. But I think a lot of investment benefits in that sense.
I totally agree. I think with these things, and I've worked at places where we're doing something, it's definitely not making money because I can see the numbers. But given that we are doing it, hey, why don't we promote it? Right? You don't want to waste any good opportunity. So I just think things like this, and I know with Valhalla, like you even start the game with accessibility options. I think that this really does have to become the norm for games. I think it's very unfair to gate things off, even if it is a small part of the community, just because, the inability to do certain things in a game, which doesn't really need to be the way it is. And, for people who are able to, do those quick actions in the regular way, like they can still do that. Like, because they said that
distract from
the
rest of the experience for other people. So I think it's a nice little thing to add for people that need.
So to me, I think, given this category, that I'd rate that as the number one thing. So what do you think, Mike? Where do you land? Or have I convinced you, Swinny?
So I think that we've already given credit to Slippy in the small story. I'm happy to go with Last of Us.
Oh, there you go.
Cool.
I do find it amusing that the people who who are like massively into Slippy voted against it in that category.
Well, I think you did have a very strong argument. So
yeah.
All right, let's go on to the fun one.
All right, now we've got the next one is biggest heel of the year. So this is the biggest villain. So we've got one honorable mention, which was Mr. Wizard. We mentioned before, one of the Evo founders, and all the alleged claims, and everything. Not good, but honorable mention or dishonorable mention. So our 5 nominees for biggest heel of the year. First is COVID-19.
Are we really having COVID-19? That's a joke, right?
No, that's not a joke. I think that's
a very valid nomination.
Well, that's going to win. It's going
we haven't discussed any of this stuff.
Mate, it's a 1 in 100-year pandemic. Like, are you serious?
All right. Well, it's there. It's a nominee. You had a chance to dispute it.
I can't even see my family at Christmas. Well, I'm not voting. I'm voting for the Smash community.
Let's talk about the nominees. All right, the rest of the nominees.
We'll go straight back to this.
Hey, don't let me finish because I know it's distorted. So next is the Smash community and all the allegations and just it. Like a lot of the big content creators, zero allegations against them. And, whether or not there's truth to everything or there's not, it was a horrible stain on the Smash community. We have MSI allegedly scalping graphics cards. So that was, I remember, a big story on the week that I was in hospital. Thanks, Mike and integot. Next, we've got The Last of Us Part 2 bigots and the people that were bombing Metacritic specifically because they dared to include a lot of diversity in the game. And the last nominee is Facebook for making Facebook accounts mandatory for Oculus VR headsets.
So let's go back to COVID for a second. Here's why I think it's not the winner.
Okay,
so this
go on.
is the gaming podcast we're on, right?
But don't put it on the list.
Oh no, but I think it should be on the list. But I think the reality is it's probably done more for gamers than it having a negative impact, in the sense that people have had more time to actually stay at home and play games. So I don't think it's been a villain in that sense for the gaming community. Yeah, okay, it's disrupted some of the gaming events, and you can go there in person. But other than that,
games.
people have more time. They don't have to waste time with their families. They don't have to waste time with their
E3 was cancelled. That's all I'm going to say. E3 was cancelled.
Yeah, but look at all the positives. You save, a lot of people spend 2 hours a day commuting to work back and forth, right? That's 10 hours a week. It's 10 hours they could have spent playing a game now. Boom. Multiply that by how many weeks this thing's been going on for. That's a lot of extra games you could be playing. So, okay, all jokes aside, personally, I think I'm going to go with the Facebook mandatory for Oculus.
I thought you were going to say COVID-19 at the end of it.
And this is the reason why I actually put COVID-19 on there, because not to say that I don't think it's been an overwhelming, like, I don't think it's more positive than negative, but it's an interesting discussion. That's why I wanted to have. So
I think it's pros and cons. It's done a lot of really bad things to the gaming community. I'm talking particularly.
Yeah,
I'm not
this
talking
is
about the
very
wider
specific to gaming.
Clearly, it's a bad thing, obviously. But I'm talking about for gaming. Has it been a positive or negative thing?
For the record, I'm going to exclude COVID-19 from my voting, because I never want to be on the record as saying I didn't choose COVID-19 over Facebook mandatory for Oculus. I'm trying to run for like political office in the future, and they're like, "But back in 2020, you said COVID wasn't as bad as Facebook."
Well, you guys, I was deep throating a banana earlier in the podcast, so I'm pretty sure my political career is gone. So
I need like a 5-second censor button for you, and just for you.
You've got the deck now. You should just have like my face on it, and you just like.
I actually think I will.
Cross.
So, like I said, COVID-19 is obviously the only winner. But outside of that, although I would say your point, Mike, around the impact on gaming, there's never been a bigger sales year for gaming. Nintendo's like way up, Sony's way up, Microsoft's way up. So, like, yeah, you're right there. But it's definitely the biggest villain. But I'm going to park it. And I'm actually tossing between the Smash community and Facebook mandatory for Oculus, because Facebook mandatory for Oculus is just so annoying, and like I'll never get an Oculus because of it, never ever. But the Smash one's pretty massive, because there's a lot of literally like content creators I'll watch that they're gone, like they're just off you, they're off the face of the earth.
And they were like the top, like Zero was the top Smash 4 player. Like these are top players in the competitive community as well, content creators.
Yeah.
Look, okay. So if we're kind of saying COVID-19 is almost like, well, it's unfair, and if we're talking about the rest of them, then I'm leaning towards the Smash community as well.
Yeah, can we not say the Smash community? Can we call that like the Smash? What are they called? Perpetrators?
No, but I think that there's a lot of people there's a lot of people out there that were also defending things. Like, I just think like, man, when you're checking Reddit at the time,
you're right. They were.
Now, there's a lot of people that are right to be cynical and say, okay, well, I'm going to wait to see facts. I'm not saying that. There's people out there that were actively saying that some of the stuff they were doing, which I will not mention, or alleged to have done, were fine. And it's like, look. Anyway, it was a really dark period for what is otherwise a great community.
Yeah, it is.
But in that case, there's a lot of good there. Whereas I can't see any good in the Facebook making.
Oh, there's no good at all. So basically, Facebook, really, let's face it, want you to have a mandatory account. So when they control you in your virtual world that they want you to spend as much time as possible, they are able to, as well as possible, keep you in there for as long as possible to serve you more ads and do whatever the hell they want to do. I think the implications to society down the track, VR becomes a big thing, are huge. There's going to be so many people that are going to be so messed up.
You could say that was the story as soon as they bought Oculus. You know, like
Well, yeah, it was. But I mean, this is like
that's the wider issue. Like this specific thing we're
Very-
talking about is them making it mandatory to have a Facebook account and replacing the Oculus accounts and everything. Just before we kind of just get too far into that, I just also want to make mention that the bigotry that came out of when The Last of Us Part 2's story leaked, that was disgusting. Like, it was absolutely disgusting what people were out there saying. And I'm not talking about people, when the game was released, criticizing and constructively criticizing the issues they had with the game about it being too long and stuff. I'm talking about the people that were actively out there brigading against it because of the themes and the characters and everything. And that was disgusting. I don't think it's worthy of being biggest villain of the year, but that was
touching that with a fall. Also because it's villain, not villains.
No.
Yeah, again, technicality. You can't bucket everyone into a single thing.
Of course you can.
Can't.
Okay, the last Part 2 community.
That's what these bigots do.
A game, not just because of one particular thing.
All right, so what do we say? I totally agree with what you're saying on the Last of Us stuff, Swinny, by the way. So what? So wait, what's the winner? Smash? For the loser?
Well, let's say let's go for the one that there is no. Well, MSI. There's probably no good there, but let's go with Facebook. I reckon because there's no good part to that. You know what I mean? It's like there's still good to the Smash community. The Last of Us Part 2 is still a great game that a lot of people loved. MSI, whatever. You know, COVID is. We said we kind of excluded COVID.
Honest mistake with MSI.
All right,
cool.
All right, let's get moving.
All right. So the next category is, this one's an interesting one, the biggest big weekend gaming game of the year. So what that means is the game we talked about and covered the most on the podcast. It's like, okay, if we were going to say what game would we put as, I guess, the symbol of the podcast for what, you know, we started mid-year, but basically there's still been a lot of games that we just talked about over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That's what this is. So we've got a couple of honorable mentions. One is Tales of Vesperia, because I've talked about that heaps, and you talked about Rocket League a lot. But our actual nomination, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Cyberpunk 2077, Control, Halo Infinite, and Animal Crossing New Horizons.
It's obviously Smash Brothers. You guys won't shut up about it.
So, okay, I have a different view. I think...
different view. Okay, let's hear it.
I think there's a recency bias around Cyberpunk, but we actually weren't talking about Cyberpunk that much earlier in the year, even though we knew it was coming. To me, I reckon the game that we should pick is Control, because the fact that we talk about Control so much,
I know,
and it didn't come out this year or anything.
Mike,
you guys talk about Smash Bros. Literally every episode. There's something on it.
No, but Mike, there was a whole period of time where we didn't talk about Smash Bros. Where there just seemed to be a new story, whether or not it was. There's a new story about Control, or we're talking about Control because it's now on discount, or it's like it just happened to be mentioned all the time across like our 24 episodes. I reckon you could say Control was probably mentioned on at least 50% of them.
Well, then Control it is.
All right. And I'm always saying, oh, I really want to play this game. Oh, I got to play this game.
And you still haven't played it. What?
I bought it.
All right.
It is
cool. That was an easy one. All right. The next one is biggest pandemic Timesink of the year. So this is a category that hopefully we'll only ever have to include once in these yearly awards.
Yes. Not in an inaugural one, yeah.
I don't think 2021 is going to be much better.
So these are games that we played a lot in 2020 that were essentially perfect for relaxing and wasting a lot of time, because a lot of us had a lot more time because we couldn't go anywhere.
Would you say there was a good thing with COVID, that we got more time?
Let's go on.
All right.
And stuff.
Say that. Well, 5 nominees for this. So we have Animal Crossing New Horizons, Super Mario Maker 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Rocket League, and any Picross game. And Mike,
I know you guys.
Mike, I thought you would have added something to this category, but clearly you missed it.
I thought I did. I actually added some stuff to some of these, and for whatever reason,
in your mind.
So.
Oh yeah, that's the way Google Sheets works. It's very unreliable for that stuff. It's famous for being unreliable for that stuff.
So yeah, because I had stuff for this, but anyway, look, you guys and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I feel like that is going to be it for you. I'm going to go Animal Crossing New Horizon. I actually regret, in some ways, the amount of time I wasted on that game because I just feel empty inside afterwards. I don't feel it didn't leave me satisfied. It left me feeling like I went to the pokies or something, and I gambled at a casino, and I left with all that time wasted. It just didn't leave me satisfied at all. I regret wasting that time on that game. The only good thing about it was the cool co-op thing with my girlfriend. That was awesome.
So I'm going just like I did with Ultimate Marvel's Capcom 3. I'm going to represent the community here, and I'm also going to say Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Cool.
And the reason why I'm representing is because I never played it, and I don't really want to play it. But
good.
I'd say if there's any game that you could say that people just sunk so much time into, and it launched early in the year, so it was like something that people are still playing, as you know, integot quite well. I reckon that is essentially the 2020 Timesink game of the year.
It is.
Oh, and just a quick update on Animal Crossing. So, my wife, for Christmas, I got a. This is really crazy. Like 4 boxes, each box series of cards for the Animal Crossing Amiibo card thing. And these things, you get them and they're either like all doubles or like full sets, or like it's quite random how it all works. So it's like 400 cards in total. And she opened them all up on Christmas Day. She said it was actually the best Christmas present she's ever received.
Wow.
And she actually got all 400. And I was like, so thankful, man.
Awesome.
Like
that is awesome.
The amount of money, it's so expensive, this stuff. It's like ridiculous. So I'm just so glad she's got them all. So now she's got the complete set because she's very
well.
Problem now.
The Amiibo cards.
Mike, you cut out. What did you say?
Is it a bit of a problem, you reckon? The amount of time she spends in that virtual world? Family in the real world?
She's not spending it. I think
she's not talking to you about.
I think we need to have a whole segment on your ideas around investing time into games and wasting times into games.
No, I'm just curious. Like, at what point does it become a bit of an addiction?
Okay, are we all right? Let's not spend too long on this because Animal Crossing Amiibo cards are also nominated in a category coming up.
Yeah,
true. All right. So yeah, Animal Crossing was definitely always going to be my number one in that category.
That was the first one that we all agreed on.
Yep.
Nice.
Okay.
Was it? Oh wow. Okay.
Okay, so next one is biggest game none of us played of the year. So pretty straightforward. We didn't play any of these. So now I think Mike, you put here COD Warzone. I mean, technically, I think the standalone launched this year, but I think the original Warzone launched with the Modern Warfare remake. I think last year, but I think it's still worthy of putting in and as an honorable mention. And I could be wrong about the whole launch of that as well. So the nominees, 5 of them, are Persona 5 Royal, Half-Life Alyx, Crusader Kings 3, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
To me, the clear winner is Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah, I agree.
I actually feel that if I had played it, it would probably be the game of the year for me. Easily.
As I said a few weeks ago, I went back to play Half-Life. And it's been interesting because playing Half-Life 1, which came out in 98, Swinny, and then Mario 64, which came out in 96, like Half-Life is just still so good. It's not clunky at all. Whereas Mario 64, and it's a high bar, but it is a little bit clunky now, like playing through it. So Half-Life's just amazing. Half-Life for me, easily. And then Persona 5 Royal, like, only for the fact that Persona 5 is a very old game now. Like, yeah, that would have been up there as well.
Yeah, I agree. Half-Life Alyx it is.
And Warzone did come out last year, but it was a part of Modern Warfare last year. So it got released by itself this year.
Okay, next category is biggest waste of money of the year. Now, this doesn't mean that it's not inherently negative. It could be something that we just admit that we wasted a lot of money, but it doesn't mean that we regret it. But then it could also be something we regret. So it's a bit of a mix. So we have 2 honorable mentions. We have the Cyberpunk Collector's Edition. And Mike, I think you put both of these, and 10,000 water cooling parts.
Yep. So I kind of regret both. Look, I actually don't regret either. I think the collector's edition is pretty cool. and I finally got my hands on it from my parents' place.
Can I ask how much that was?
I think it was like 430, 440 bucks. Yeah, it's huge though. That's what
Xbox, right?
it's massive. It's for Xbox. Yeah. I mean, the actual box is big.
All right.
It's
Yeah, I
like
told you that. It takes up a whole car seat.
3 erections worth.
Okay.
Like the whole car.
Sensor button.
Massive.
All right.
So, and I actually think the content in it, as far as collectors things go, are pretty cool.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right.
Water cooling parts, I highly regret. I literally probably have about 10,000 water cooling parts.
All right. So the actual nominees is the Cyberpunk Xbox One X console, Animal Crossing Amiibo cards, which we just talked about, Chemco games, and all the microtransactions that Swinny spent on them this year and last year. And yeah. Anyway, Among Us, as much as that's not a big purchase, it's still something we've talked about as being a regret on the podcast for certain co-hosts. And Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers. And
I feel like Game & Watch for me is like eliminated because it's just such a cool item.
The reason I put it there is because when I actually talked about it, I kind of felt like I regretted it because I didn't feel like I could use it. Just didn't feel like it had much of a use. I liked it, but it's like, well, I just spent like $70 on this or whatever it was. It's like, well, was that really worth what it is?
Yeah,
I don't think it wins this, but yeah.
Damn, I wish I had a better memory for this stuff, but you had that awesome line where it's essentially like, this worked exactly as intended, and I was so disappointed.
I was like, I don't know what I was expecting because it's exactly as advertised or something like that.
That's exactly, that's perfect the way it's phrased. I mean, Among Us, like, we only paid like $7-8, but we only played it once for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. I played it on mobile, so suck it.
I think Chemco, you're getting a lot of achievement stuff from it. So it's like
the Chemco stuff quickly, so you know why. So a lot of the Chemco games on release are like $25, right? So they're not like $10 games. But then Swinny being ridiculous. Also, when they launch, they have microtransactions with them, and those microtransactions are things like double damage and triple experience and stuff, and they generally cost about $3 or $5 each. Okay. And I will generally get like 2 of them each time I buy a Chemco game. And there's been 12 Chemco games released this year, and I haven't bought the last 2, but I've bought the first 10 of them. So when you add that up, that's a lot of money.
Like over $100.
So you spent like $300 on Chemco games.
I don't regret it.
I like the hesitation.
Yeah. That's the same as you probably for Animal Crossing Amiibo cards. You don't regret it, right? I think it's cool. Your wife enjoyed it. What's to regret about it?
Yeah, I don't have buyer's remorse. It's a big money sink, but like then again, she said it's like the best present she ever got.
Exactly. So I think it's an investment in her
love. It has to be the Xbox One X console.
Well, I don't regret it though. That's the thing.
This isn't that regret as much. It's like
money sink. Yeah. Oh, it's probably definitely that one. I haven't even opened it. So.
The fact
but it's also a console and never run it properly.
Exactly, because it won't run it properly. So what's the point of even opening it?
It's got to be the number one, dude.
I will open it and actually use it as a console, but at the moment I just CBF'd.
Can you do an unboxing on our channel and destroy it?
Destroy it. Do you want me to actually get a baseball take it out the back?
Just fake it. Just fake the destruction.
I'm happy to say the Cyberpunk Xbox One console, but I don't want to. If Mike doesn't want that, I don't want to do it. So.
I can't pick the other ones. So this is the only. Look, actually, probably the Game & Watch. I wasn't super disappointed, but I don't think it was worth it. But it wasn't as much as the console, which was like what $400 bucks. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the console. I think.
All right, cool. Done. All right, the next one. All right, now we're up to. Oh no, actually, there's one more before we get to those. I was about to say character specific, the co-host specific ones. So the next one is biggest mic drop of the year. So this is basically the biggest surprise, the biggest announcement that we're like, oh, what? That happened? Like, what the hell? So there's a couple of honorable mentions here, and I'll explain why I think they're honorable mentions. So first is Mass Effect. That was a great announcement, but I don't think it was a surprise. So that's why I don't think it's really a mic drop. And Perfect Dark, while it was a surprise, none of us were like, okay, that's the best announcement ever or anything like that. So the 5 nominees, first is Sephiroth in Smash Brothers, which was a great announcement of the Game Awards.
I almost think that Steve should be in instead of
The
Sephiroth.
reason I chose Sephiroth over Steve, because I thought about it, was Steve. We expected Steve.
Yeah, that's true. I said Steve's almost guaranteed. So
Whereas nobody,
yeah, okay,
we didn't honestly expect Sephiroth. So
that's true. That's true.
the next one is Demon Souls Remake. While I will say that was rumored in some way, it was still, I think, a good surprise, especially the launch title. Mario 3D All Stars. I'm kind of, now I think about it, that one was like super like rumored for so long. So
Yeah, we were arguing about it. You're going, it's guaranteed.
I don't know. I'm almost willing to swap Mass Effect in for there, but
yeah, can we put Mass Effect in
cool.
for that?
That's good. I don't think Mass Effect's going to win, but I think it's a more worthy nomination now I think about it.
Hey, don't juke the numbers.
Okay.
Don't manipulate.
Avowed, which honestly, I think a lot of people are probably like, wait, what is Avowed? Because it came in the middle of all this stuff happening. So Avowed is the big Obsidian, RPG that they announced in one of the Xbox digital shows. So that's basically the next big Obsidian RPG, and it looks poised to kind of be a big, possibly first-person RPG along the lines of something like a Skyrim or something, which is interesting now that Microsoft also own Bethesda, but that's a different thing. So Avowed was a great announcement, and something that I keep forgetting was announced this year, which was Final Fantasy 16. So I don't know where I fall with this one. I love Sephiroth and Smash, but I'm almost thinking that Demon Souls Remake is probably the best thing here.
That's my one. That caught me by surprise, and damn, it was good.
I'm gonna go Final Fantasy 16. Just, I think, although it seems obvious, right? There's going to be a 16. Just the way it was announced, and then also the fact that it is a bit more of a going back into the franchise's history, and I think it's kind of like a change that most people wanted. So yeah, I'm saying 16, but I think Demon Souls. The good thing about it is it seems like a great game. So
cool,
it's amazing.
All right, now we've got 3 categories that are specific to us each. So a host specific category, starting with me, of course, because I'm the best, is Swinny's biggest Smash main of the year. So we've mentioned it in passing before, but I tend to play a lot of characters in Smash, sometimes to the detriment of not learning one well enough. But
as do I.
You do, but you don't consider them all your mains. Like,
no, that was a joke. That was a joke. I basically only play Inkling.
That's true. Actually, I didn't pick up on that. All right, I'm an idiot. So I had to limit this obviously to 5. There were some honorable mentions. Peach, which I did play quite a bit during the year, but that's one of my older mains. And Ike is my main from Brawl that I play quite a bit, but nothing compared to the next 5. So the 5 nominees are Byleth, Terry, Hero, Cloud, and Corrin. And I played these all a crap load because I actually started playing Smash Brothers for the first time this year, even though the game obviously came out a while back. So
2018.
I don't know how you feel, integot, because you're probably the victim a lot of the time of these.
Hey, we're about even. Thank you very much.
I can't go past Byleth. I think I just put the most time. Okay. I think I put the most time in the Byleth.
But what's the question? Is it the best main or
it's the biggest main?
The biggest main. I think so Corrin, super annoying. I hate that character, but no, Cloud no, Terry no. It's always going to be between Hero and Byleth.
Well, I've put more time into playing Terry than Hero. Just a lot more online as well, like playing by myself, Terry. But I think I can't go past Byleth because the distance demon is just like awesome. And Sephiroth's not on here because I haven't played Sephiroth enough, but I love those characters that have huge reach. So
I think it's Hero because that's just your personality.
My personality,
it's just like
trolling and random.
Yeah, trolling, random. I don't know. So just to explain the character quickly, Mike, it's basically a core component of this character is it has a menu where it can select special moves,
like an RPG,
and then some of them are insanely powerful, like they self-destruct.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very Swinny. Like he's losing and then something happens that he gets luck and then he wins and he's like, oh, how good am I? I'm like, this is bullshit. You just got lucky. And it's so annoying. And it's like, that to me is him. It's like this character is the embodiment of him.
Oh, it's good.
So anyway, you said Byleth.
I think Byleth wins. Yeah. All right, the next one. Did you guys want to introduce these ones, or you want me to introduce them?
Oh no, you introduce them.
Okay, so
and I can talk about the games.
Okay, cool. So the next category is Mike's biggest Souls-inspired Souls-like Metroidvania of the year. So basically, the criteria is any game that Mike played,
Pretty much,
which is 90% Souls-like Metroidvanias. So it doesn't mean every one of these is Metroidvania or Souls-like, but basically any of the games kind of fit. So the 5 nominees are Blasphemous, Morbid, The Seven Acolytes, Vigil, The Longest Night, Demon Souls, as in the remake, and Sultan Sanctuary. And by the way, these all didn't have to come out this year. It's just the games he played.
Yeah, correct. So this was a tough one, but I'll get straight to the point. It was a toss between Blasphemous and Demon Souls. I love Sultan Sanctuary. Finally played it. It's been out for a while. Amazing game. You guys should absolutely play it. Morbid, wasn't a big fan in the end. Didn't end up finishing it. Vigil, still playing it. It's not bad. Bunch of bugs. Demon Souls, amazing. But I think ultimately Blasphemous was the one that caught me by surprise. And I enjoyed the most. And I do believe you played this one as well, Swinny?
Yeah.
On Xbox?
No, I've got it on...
I played all of these on Switch other than Demon Souls,
I've got it on
obviously.
Switch, Blasphemous. I've only played the early part of it, but it's really good.
It's really, really cool, yeah. I love the art in it. Great gameplay, really cool game. Caught me by surprise. So I'm going to go for that one. Sorry, Demon Souls, as much as I love you. You've won too many other awards.
Cool, Blasphemous wins. All right. So the next host-specific category is Integot. So it's Integot's biggest amiibo of the year. So basically his favorite amiibo that was released in 2020. So the nominees are Joker, Hero, Dark Samus, and Richter.
So I actually went back to double check all of these got released this year because there were some re-releases. I mean, the amiibo cards for Animal Crossing are a re-release, so I'm not counting them. I was actually surprised it was only 4 because there was so many amiibo announcements this year, but a lot of stuff was released late last year, and then a lot of things are getting released next year.
Well, also,
including
I did originally say you could include the announcements, but I think you wanted to make it specific to release.
I want to keep it pure. I like all of these amiibo are really, really cool. Like I could make a case for any of them. Maybe Richter is probably the clear 4th. Hero, very, very cool amiibo, but I don't have a massive, like attachment to Dragon Quest. No, I'm even getting the name wrong.
You got it.
It's definitely between like Dark Samus and Joker, but it's really close because I'm much more attached to the Metroid franchise. Obviously, not Dark Samus because I haven't gone through the Prime games yet, but I have to give it to Joker. Like if you see that amiibo, it looks insanely cool. Like it's just an incredible little figure. So that's my number one. Next year there's heaps coming out, so this is going to be a competitive category.
Cool. All right.
And just while we're doing it on the run, can we skip to the added category before we get into the final two?
Yeah, that's fine. So we just wanted to talk about essentially the biggest Don't Forget Me games. The games that haven't actually been nominated for anything, so we just wanted to kind of give them a bit of a shout out. So the first was Kentucky Route Zero, and the last episode of that was released in 2020. So that's now a full complete series, and I think it started in 2013. So it's good and very, very well regarded. I've still got it in Steam. I haven't played it. At some point I will, but Final Fantasy VII Remake, obviously a huge game, and there's just been, unfortunately, I just don't think it just didn't fit in the last 2 categories that we had, but still deserves a call out. Next is Maneater, which is a very, very fun game that I've watched a lot of footage of. I've played myself. I don't know if any of you guys have played it.
No, I want my hands.
Yeah, so that looks really, really fun. Where you're a shark, doing shark things. Destiny 2 Beyond Light, huge expansion. Apparently, I don't know how well it's been received, but it's Destiny 2 is obviously a huge game, but it didn't really fall into any categories. And the last one is probably even the biggest game here is Ghost of Tsushima, which Mike, you definitely played.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that game is almost like perfect for Swinny. I love my third person, but perfect for Swinny, but Swinny don't have a PS4 or PS5.
No, he's an Xbox fanboy.
Yeah.
You're just gonna skip the PS4, right? Because the PS5's got the backwards compatibility. So
Well, yeah, but we'll talk about it before I actually really want to get a PS3 first, so I can catch up on some of those games.
So Ghost is like a game that's built for you, man, because you know Japanese, and I haven't played it, but people that I respect sort of go, "Hey, this game is basically a better Assassin's Creed, but set in feudal Japan." And I'm like, "Wow, this sounds like the perfect game for Swinny."
Oh yeah, I would.
Yeah, I'm going to give it the nod. I think it's like such a massive game, and we don't talk about it at all.
This is not an actual category. I wasn't going to select the winner from it.
Oh, I am.
Okay, let's go with that.
You're right, Ghost of Tsushima. There you go.
I'm going to go with Final Fantasy VII Remake because, to me, it's also the biggest regret of this year. I was looking forward to that game for many, many years since it was announced. And then I got my hands on launch day, and I played it for a little bit, and then life got in the way, and I stopped. And I'm like, what the hell? It's an amazing game. And I just never got back into it yet. So now I'm waiting for a patch for PS5.
I should have put that in the games we haven't played of the year because you really
probably should have put it there, actually, yeah. Right. Well, I played it. I just didn't play it enough.
Okay.
So that's the one for me. What are you going to go, Swinny?
I already said Ghost of Tsushima. I was going to spend long on this, so Ghost of Tsushima, there we go. All right. Our last two categories. So we've got, this is another pairing. Biggest small game of the year. So it's our favorite small game of the year. When I say small game, it's a game small in scope, small in, it's generally indie titles. Some may be published by big names, but they're generally small games that don't take a lot of time. Well, one does take a lot of time, but anyway, they're generally smaller experiences. And then we'll obviously have the biggest big game of the year to round it out. But for biggest small game of the year, we have one honorable mention. I put Monster Viator. That's actually a Kemco game, but I actually think it's a fantastic game. It's interesting. We've got Monster Sanctuary as a nominee. Monster Viator is actually kind of similar in a lot of ways, where you're collecting monsters in an RPG format. But our nominees for biggest small game of the year is Tell Me Why, Don't Nod's cool episodic supernatural story, Monster Sanctuary, Crosscode, Mortal Shell, and Call of the Sea, which I don't know how Call of the Sea actually got on here because I didn't.
I shoved it on there because I thought it looked cool, and you gave a really good review of it.
Well, while you're correcting your PS4 in the video, but no, it's interesting. I like Call of the Sea. I don't know if I'd put it up against any of the rest of these though. So,
okay.
But so I don't know. Where do you want to start? Integot?
So I feel like this is unfair, but because I haven't played Crosscode, I had installed it and then I uninstalled it because I'm like, I've really got to play these games of some other year and catch up to you guys.
Sorry, clarify. Crosscode is on this year because it was released on consoles this year. That's why.
Oh, that's a bit of a cheat. I feel like Monster Sanctuary, just because part of the intention of the biggest small game is to shine a light on games as well. And I feel like that game just doesn't have any light shone on it at all. And it's a really cool game. It's a really cool game. Like you ended up giving it what, like 8.5 in the end? And I gave it like 8, so...
Yeah. Mike?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't played anything other than Mortal Shell. So, kind of have to go with that one.
This does make it a little problematic.
This is going to be a problem, yeah.
I have to go Crosscode.
Okay.
Crosscode is just that game. Mike,
yep.
I reckon you'd love Crosscode a lot.
Okay. What's it about?
Crosscode.
I like how Swinny's putting Crosscode as the winner in the doc.
I'm not
the one that's putting it.
Don't accuse me doing that. I'm not the purple square.
Apologies.
Mike,
this douchebag, he's just going.
So, Mike,
Winner.
Crosscode is like a top-down 2D action RPG, but it's set in an MMO world, but just from a story standpoint. But it's absolutely fantastic, and it's got great, not only great like action gameplay, but its puzzles are just so well done, and it's a fantastic game. I cannot recommend Crosscode enough. Monster Sanctuary, I think, is a fantastic game, but to me, Crosscode is just to me the best small game of the year. The problem with Crosscode is that it's a long game.
It's like 40, 50 hours,
yeah,
right?
It's not a short game. So if we're talking about a smaller experience, well, Monster Sanctuary is also not a short game.
No, it's probably just as much, to be honest.
Whereas the other ones, like Mortal Shell, I've heard isn't super long, but Tell Me Why and Call to Sea are definitely smaller experiences. So I don't think that's something we should judge it on. It's probably more so small in terms of it's not a big AAA title.
Yeah,
correct. All right,
see, I would put the Messenger in here if it was this year, and if we're allowed to put stuff that we played this year.
Well, I almost now debate this whole thing because Crosscode didn't come out this year.
Oh, then I would have put the Messenger in here.
The reason, but the Messenger got released on consoles. Didn't get released on consoles this year.
This came out in 2018. Crosscode. Yeah. I've got to object. All right, this is a late objection.
Let me clarify. The reason why I think it deserves it is because it was released on all three console platforms this year. If it was just released on one of them and it was released on the other ones, I think that the fact that it was released on all three platforms this year, I think makes it gives it some credence there. But I'm happy if I don't care enough about this to spend ages debating it.
I love that response. I don't really care about all of this.
I like the 3-hour mark. Let's just move on.
All right, we need a better checking before.
No, I specifically knew that could come up. So are we going with that, or are we going with Monster Hunter?
Yeah, let's go with that. I know it's a really good game.
All right, cool. All right, now the biggest category, the biggest big game of the year. Now, as I mentioned at the top, not all of us have played these games, so this is more about what we think the overall biggest release of the year was. What moved the needle? What was the game of 2020? But we did limit it generally to things that were released in 2020, although on the honorable mentions, I'll mention there is an exception there. So there's actually 4 honorable mentions. So first is Flight Simulator. Second is Doom Eternal. Third is Among Us, which was the exception there, just like the Game Awards. And I also added Genshin Impact because that was a huge game this year, but it's an honorable mention just because I don't think it fits with the rest of the field. So the 5 nominees are Animal Crossing New Horizons, Cyberpunk 2077, The Last of Us Part 2, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, and Hades. Who wants to open the floor?
Cyberpunk.
I feel like Among Us probably should replace Fall Guys, but I don't think for me either of those would be my biggest big game of the year.
Me neither. It's Cyberpunk, obviously.
I do think it's between Animal Crossing, Cyberpunk, and The Last of Us, personally.
I agree. It's definitely between one of them three.
But which one?
It's hard. I could make a case for all 3. Like, I really could see
The Last of Us. I'm the only one that's allowed to actually even vote on this because I'm the only one that's played all 3. So
No. We already said at the start, it's not about playing the game. It's just like the impact. As I get it.
The one thing to remember with Animal Crossing is, and I know you guys probably haven't, done this, but just for anyone that might be listening, is just remember that came out at the start of the year. So the fact,
well, the pandemic, yeah.
So whereas like Last of Us Part 2, I guess like it was around the middle, that was earlier, but Animal Crossing has essentially, I think, still kind of been in the ether and been a thing for almost an entire year, I think. Whereas Cyberpunk is obviously just not its fault is at the end of the year, but it's tough. It's super tough because you could make a huge argument for each of the 3. Personally, I think it's between Animal Crossing or Cyberpunk.
It's but the thing is, I feel like Last of Us, I don't know. I'm really big on thinking about what is this going to look like in 5 years when you look back at it. Like, that's important to me because I feel like that's kind of the point of what you're trying to say with these things, the legacy stuff, right? And Animal Crossing, I think it's a fantastic game, but I do acknowledge even your point, Swinny. It's probably not the best Animal Crossing game. Like even New Leaf is better of an Animal Crossing game than New Horizons so far with what they've done with the DLCs and all of that kind of stuff. Last of Us Part 2, I feel like eventually probably will go down as the best game of this generation.
That was meant to be Cyberpunk.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, maybe it still will. When they
So
patch everything
are we
up,
going to take some negative points for the fact that Cyberpunk essentially didn't deliver on or it delivered a very flawed experience for a lot of people?
Oh, God, this is a really, really tough, actually. I do think ultimately, I just, the thing with Cyberpunk, because Witcher 3 released with massive bugs on consoles.
It did, but it still ran well. That's the problem. Like, not the problem, but that's the difference. Is it still ran well? It didn't run like a pile of crap on base consoles. Well, it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of
I do.
It's the biggest game is also it's a little too open for.
That's why the fun of it.
Yeah, you can view it from so many different angles because I think The Last of Us as an experience was still one of the most memorable experiences I had and was one of the most polished experiences.
Maybe think about it this year, like when you think of the year, 2018, 2019, 2020, what was the one game you could say like was this is 2020?
Yeah, for me it's Cyberpunk, but again, it's tainted because I'm playing it now.
Shouldn't that be for like the year 2077?
You idiot.
I'm
now switching my vote. I'm switching my vote to Animal Crossing because now when I think about it, like in the future, I think like the funny thing about Animal Crossing, it came out pretty much at the start of the pandemic when it hit the Western world. And it's almost the antithesis of the pandemic. It's all about, this beautiful little island and you're getting other people to come and, it's all socializing and people. It's kind of like the opposite of the pandemic.
It's almost like Nintendo released COVID as a marketing just to get the people to buy Animal Crossing.
But even when I say that, I still
allegedly
struggle to go Cyberpunk. Because it's just like I feel like in 5 years' time, people would still talk about Cyberpunk like it's the most disastrous launch of a game ever.
But also maybe they'll redeem themselves by then. I don't think they'll ever fully redeem themselves, but I feel like in 2-3 years' time, they would have added so much to the game,
but that's I think that will then turn it into a AAA version of No Man's Sky, which is even bigger.
Yeah.
Which to me makes it even more important to put it as the biggest big game because then you go back, man, that game launched in a totally broken state and they worked their asses off and got it working on consoles that no one even plays anymore, all that kind of stuff.
So controversial, but then kind of Last of Us was kind of controversial as well, so
where do you sit, Swinny? You're holding your cards close to your chest.
You always think I'm doing some like risk strategy.
Some contrarian business. You're waiting for us to pick, so then you can do your hero smash style move.
I honestly, you could make a case for like specifically these three. You could make a case for any of them. I still think it's. I'm leaning towards Animal Crossing simply because the reason being is, and I've always thought about this. We've mentioned it before on the podcast. Like this feels like the game of 2020 because. Just look at now. I know we're not talking about sales here, but just the amount of people playing Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now I know Cyberpunk sold a lot, but there's people playing Animal Crossing that just don't play games and are talking about it. Like the fact that I know this is very specific to different friendship groups and the people that you generally hang around with, but like the fact that all the partners are people also playing the game as well as the I just think that, and when you add it in with the fact that we're in, during the pandemic and kind of, Melbourne especially was in a lockdown and stuff, it just kind of, it feels like the perfect game for this year, for the absolute crap hole that has been 2020. Animal Crossing has been, and this is coming from someone that hasn't even played it and has no desire to play it because I've had my fill of Animal Crossing.
You're antisocial
with Double to Nomori, No, anyway. But I think I gotta say that I reckon it's the game of 2020, and that's coming from someone that loves CD Projekt Red's games.
So you've steered me towards that because it just made me think, oh, actually, Mike and I were in a group chat with our partners and some other people just on Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
And like, hey, my island's selling it, for this amount of dollars or bells. And, everyone jumped on, like, crazy stuff. Like, we don't have a Cyberpunk group chat or a Last of Us Part 2 group chat. So,
Yeah, my partner played it quite a lot, probably more
Mm.
than me. Her sisters got into it. Yeah,
And-
okay.
and-
yeah, I'm swayed as well.
yeah, it's unanimous now. It's unanimous. Animal
Animal
Crossing.
Crossing New Horizons is the biggest big game of the year for 2020. Congratulations.
Thanks for spreading COVID, Nintendo.
All right, we've gone long.